Well, good afternoon. This is a Will Cain Show, and this is a Fox News alert. Dramatic end to Karen Read's murder retrial as a huge crowd of supporters gathered outside the courthouse. Jury finding Read not guilty of second-degree murder in the 2022 death of her then-boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe. Let's bring in criminal defense attorney Brian Claypool. Thank you, Brian. What do you think of the jury's verdict? Do you think they got it right?
Hey, Will, yeah, I think they got it right, and here's why. In most murder cases, you have what's called a manner of death. We knew the cause of death was blunt force trauma to O'Keefe's head, but there was no manner of death. What do I mean by that? Usually a gunshot or a knife wound. You didn't have that here. And the biggest hurdle for prosecutors was, how can you explain to a jury that there are no physical injuries to any portion of O'Keefe's body below his head? In other words, if the SUV that Read was driving is going to hit O'Keefe and knock him on the ground to hit his head, Will, then he's going to have some injuries on his torso and his legs. He didn't have any of that. And I think another powerful piece of evidence was the snowplow driver. Remember that guy? He doesn't have an axe to grind in this case. He's not for the plaintiff or defendant. He came in and said, look, I was plowing that road at 2:40 a.m. I saw clearly in the yard where the body was supposed to be, and I didn't see a body. So that was another powerful piece of evidence. And then look, I think Martha touched on it. You had this video of Read in her docuseries. Why is that important? Because the jury actually knew her possibly before the trial started. And if they didn't, they saw her testifying through video. And I think that really helped her. That was one of the game changers in this case. They could relate to her better, and that led to the acquittal.
Brian, that it's one thing to knock down someone else's argument, but actually in human psychology, what's incredibly powerful is to offer another argument that obviously people on the street latched onto, but do you think they did in the jury box as well? They latched onto this other positive story, positive in terms of they can tell themselves an alternate story of what happened to Karen Read.
Will, absolutely. Why? There was already a docuseries on Netflix about this. So you're going into the second trial, and like you said, there's already a 4-episode story, a backstory that's gone on with Karen Read. So when this trial started, a lot of these jurors probably already knew what the backstory was. It's David versus Goliath. Everybody wants to be part of that. Everybody wants to be on David's side, and that was Karen Read. She's up against law enforcement. They failed to really conduct any interviews of anybody inside the house. There was alleged tampering with evidence missing, evidence allegedly framed or staged on the yard. You had all of that going on. Then on top of that, Will, you had a woman who's just like a lot of the people outside of the front of the courthouse. She has no prior criminal history. She's a working professional, and she comes across like a good old neighbor of everybody out there. And that's the backstory that really led to, I think, this acquittal. One last point. I think Mercedes is right, Will. That dog bite issue was crucial because it came, and that the guy in the house got rid of the dog. Juries like those stories too.
Right. And the point isn't to help us necessarily arrive at what's right or wrong or just or unjust, but to understand the way that we as humans make decisions in courtrooms and throughout our lives. We'll see, by the way, if a civil jury who only relies on a preponderance of the evidence feels the same way, but that's for a later date.